Hello and welcome to this very first episode in the Bake Off miniseries from Spoilers for Days. If this is your first time listening to us, probably go have a listen to the intro episode for this little miniseries. I'm Josh, and with me I've got Brandon.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
I guess first things first, for people who may not know who Brandon is, I'll do a quick intro. So, in the second volume of Let's Get Deeper, I did a little one-on-one with Brandon, where, we got to talk a bit about his life and what happens for him. But the main thing, basically, is we are very avid Twitter people who first, I guess, was it MasterChef from 2018?
Yeah, 2018. That's when we first sort of came across each other on the Twitter sphere.
Yes. And then it basically ramped up with this past season of MasterChef. We had Team Ben, and I guess
what a wild ride that was.
What a truly wild ride 2019 was.
I don't think anyone sort of knew it would go where it did.
No, I don't think. I didn't know where it would end up, but, here we are. We were going to have another Team Ben person here on with us, but unfortunately Victoria has not been able to make it. And we just want to send good vibes to her from the both of us. So
we love you, Victoria.
We do, and it would have been so much more fun, I think, if we were able to get her on, but alas, we are unable to do so in time for all the Bake Off. So, this episode,
there'll be another chance somewhere down the track.
I'm sure we'll do like a Team Ben thing. We'll see. We'll never know what will happen. So, yes. This episode, we're going to talk about the Great Australian Bake Off, Season 4. So, I think a lot of people, chronologically, this is the 5th season, but it's the 4th season that's produced by Foxtel. We're gonna explore some very many things about this. So, Brandon, I'll ask you, was there anything, what were your overall thoughts about Aussie Bake Off this season in particular?
So what I've decided to do as we go through all the various episodes for this season, I was going to give a score out of 10 for each Australian, British, and Canadian, just to give the listeners a little bit of an idea of how I thought the seasons rank in comparison to one another. And the score, and I hate to say it, the score I've given this season of Aussie Bake Off is 5 out of 10. For me, it wasn't bad, but I thought it was pretty average. Like, there wasn't really anything that sort of really stood out and it inspired and excited me. In my case, I've been watching Bake Off for probably about 5.5 years now. I've seen British, Canadian, and previous seasons of Aussie Bake Off. So over time, I've grown to know what I like in Bake Off and what sort of works and that. But I felt like sort of this season they played it really safe when it came to the challenges and stuff. There were some episodes where this challenge they've set, it's, in my opinion, been pretty basic, or it doesn't really make fun viewing. I also noticed, especially with the editing this season, I almost felt like we didn't really get to know the bakers as much as we could have, and as much we have done in previous seasons of Aussie Bake Off. So it was really sort of hard to, because one of the things I really like about watching Bake Off is sort of you get really attached to the bakers and you get invested in their success, and you feel really sad when they don't do well or if they go home. But unfortunately, it was just really hard to sort of pick favourites and sort of get attached to them, because I almost feel like they left out a lot of the backstory of each person. So it was hard to sort of find stuff to sort of grasp onto.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess in my case, this season is the first season I would have watched Aussie Bake Off, compared to, I guess, the others. So with British, I'd started watching from the 2018 season, and with Canadian since the first season, and then has basically caught up. And I think, well, the other thing that connects us obviously is that we are, I guess, networked through with Chris and Christy from the Washing Up. So they are a food based podcast. So their main sort of bread and butter, is Aussie is Bake Off, and in all its forms. But also they did MasterChef, and that's where I was able to be very fortunate and join them on an episode not too long ago. But they're I guess they love Aussie Bake Off, and I can understand why. I try not to get overhyped by all of that, and I try to temper my opinions since watching the season. I definitely agree with you. This production overall is shot beautifully. It is amazing how good the shots are. But I do understand, and I did feel like there wasn't as strong a connection to the bakers as I may have wanted this season. I think compared to British Bake Off and compared to Canadian Bake Off, the emotional investment that I put into this wasn't as much, I guess. And that's nothing to do with the bakers. They are genuinely very nice people and very wholesome people. I think it's the way that the edit came out.
Yeah.
Something about it was just a little bit off, that there wasn't that connection. And also, I guess there's something we need to say is this season was shot in the middle of 2018. 18?
No, 18.
18. So it's actually been a very long time since the filming of this season and then its premiere. So I don't know if that gap in time, because I think given the cold opens and the nature of the cold opens, it was supposed to be in line with what was happening with Game of Thrones. I don't know that may have impacted.
And also, I feel like because we had to wait as long as we did to see it, I think the longer you have to wait to see something, the sort of bigger you build it up in your head to be, the better you want it to be. So when you actually do see it, if it doesn't sort of meet those expectations, you sort of feel a little bit, I guess, let down.
Yeah, and I think that is probably the case. I think had the best case scenario of it being premiered in late 2018 had happened, or early 2019, I think I would have had a better impression of it, given it a lot of this stuff was very much in public consciousness at that time, in terms of the cold opens and the humor and all that stuff. Having that delay of another year, I think, there is such thing as overhyped, and which is why it's very hard for me to be overly positive about a show if it doesn't land with me emotionally, or that's why I'm very like, it's actually, it's pretty decent. I'll give it that. It's just something about the edit was a bit disjointed for me, and who knows, like maybe I'll think about it like when the next season comes around and it premieres. Maybe I'll have a different opinion of the show. Hopefully
it comes on time.
Yes, I'm really hoping it does. That way we don't, lose jokes that are like a year out of date. I think what is also very interesting about this show, and I also was able to take a sneak peek at some of the finale episodes from the 2017, early 2018 premiere season. So season 3, basically, of Aussie Bake Off. I was actually very intrigued by production's decision to bring the family, friends, and fans so close to the tent, which is something very different from the other versions that I've seen.
Yeah, I've only ever seen that in Aussie Bake Off. They've done that. I think they did that a little bit in season 2, but so the 2016 season, but I don't think it was shown as much. If it were me, that would probably psych me out. If I was in that tent, I would prefer everyone just to stay away, just so that they can focus.
Yeah, and I think, that's the impression that I got. Is I don't know how much additional pressure that would put on the bakers themselves, the finalists, to perform for their family and friends. Like being a finalist in the show alone is enough pressure, and introducing like the families who are literally like 3-4 feet away from them, looking on. I can't imagine how much more stress that puts on like the finalists. So yeah, I just felt like if you want, like, for the finalists, surely like it would be good to put at least some distance away so that they can focus entirely on what's going on in front of them. Yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on what happens. I do understand though that it allows the families to have a sort of look in to see what the shed is like. I forget this is a shed, not a tent.
So used to saying tent.
Yes, I know. Yeah, it's just that's a very interesting decision. I don't know what made lifestyle food do that, but it'll be interesting to see if that sort of, that running theme continues on, I guess, in future seasons. So yeah, I know if Chris and Chrissy are listening, I know this is probably not the thoughts that you thought we were going to have, but it is still, our perspective on how Bake Off appears on Aussie television compared to other seasons. So, it's a comparative thing. But yeah. Okay, so I have to bring up the list of bakers from this year. So we have, in no particular order, Angela, we have Win, Anston, Sue, Laura, Annette, Z, Sunny, and then the 4Ds, Dan, David, Don, and Dennis. So we have 12, right?
Yep.
Yes, 12. Yep. Okay. So much like regular, like non-Baker's Dozen, British Bake Off, 12 bakers from this season. So, Brandon, who were your favorites?
My absolute favorite was Annette. Mm-hmm. On behalf of the moon, she will be free again. Just the fact that at the time she was eliminated, I used that GIF. You can basically tell she was my favorite. She was only in, unfortunately, she was only in the only in 2 episodes, but in that short period of time, she, in my opinion, made a pretty big impact on me anyway. As an audience perspective, she really sort of stood out to me and shone through. Like, I still remember that, yeah, she does a bit of like martial arts and that, so you better, watch what you
better
say
watch out.
about her bakes. And also, I freaking love I love Scottish accents. Like, I'm not actually Scottish myself, but I do have Scottish ancestry from a very, very long time ago. So maybe I feel that sort of Scottish connection. I don't know, but I've spoken to her on social media outside of the show, and she's an absolutely lovely lady. So.
I was definitely going to ask you, did the Scottish accent sway you?
It possibly might have. But she really did shine through, though. I really, really enjoyed her presence in the tent. I was really sad that she only got 2 episodes, but that's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the baking, and I remember what happened in that episode, so I think it was a fair decision. A very fair warning: if you're going to use chili, be very, very careful.
Yes, and given the show is like grounded in with Maggie Beer and Matt Moran, Maggie is a very precious national treasure.
Oh, I still remember on MasterChef when Tardy almost killed her with.
Oh my god. Ah, dear. I remember that. That moment will live on forever. Although I think, for me, more the fact that she almost killed George, if I'm not mistaken. Was that the right one? Yeah.
I think George, was that Tessa Curry?
Oh, was it the Tessa Curry?
Yeah, I think Tardy was the one that almost killed Maggie.
That's right. Yeah.
But, Tardy, she uses a lot of spice, so who knows? She might.
Yeah. We love spice. I personally love a lot of spice. So,
I do. Yeah. I like my spicy food as well. I do have my limits, but I do like a bit of kick in my food.
Fair enough. I guess for me, in terms of favorites, I had Sunny as a favorite, as well as Dan. Mostly coming from like the fact that they're both in like research or science. But yeah, I think it really showed through that those two are very, very strong bakers. Particularly like once you get beyond, I think, week 3, you could definitely see those two are quite strong. So yeah, did you have any wild cards to get past, get into quarterfinals and beyond?
Yeah, so, well, the way I always sort of select my wild cards is people who could have made it to the final but may have not quite got there. So probably the 2 people that sort of stood out to me in that category were Don and Win. Like, especially in Don's case, he seemed to have a lot of skill, a lot of technique, and so did Win. But it's at the beginning, but it sort of began to dip as the weeks went on. But they certainly proved themselves to be very talented bakers. So if it wasn't the 3 that made it to the final, I think they could have had a place in there. But yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Unfortunately, I would definitely agree with you. Like, Win and Don did have like a very strong contention to getting through to finals, but I think more Don, there were just some things that, like, some decisions that he made that definitely had an impact on the outcome of, like, I think particularly some of the showstopper that he did in the quarterfinal, I think might have not given him that great, like, that much of a shot at going into the grand final. But overall, he was actually quite strong. So, did you have any predictions?
So probably from the very early on, I would have thought, well, the three people that I thought may have made it to the final were Angela, Sunny, and David. Like, naturally, Angela, she was the first Star Baker. Naturally, at the very beginning of the season, the person that wins Star Baker, you sort of think, oh, they might make it all the way, but unfortunately, like Angela, very talented cake maker, but I don't think she was as versatile as some of the other bakers were. Because like Sunny and David and Dan and all that, they were sort of very, very multi-skilled. Like they could do all different sorts of bakes, and that's not to say Angela didn't. Like she did actually do quite well throughout the season and make it as far as she did, but I definitely feel like her strong point was very much cakes, and her skill level in that was sort of far above her skill level in all the other areas, whereas I feel like Sunny, David, and Dan, the three that made it to the final, they sort of had a bit more of a more even like spread of skills across all the different areas, and to get into the final, that's basically what you've got to be able to show the judges, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. I think when I in the first episode, I already sort of had a prediction about definitely Sunny and definitely Dan. I wasn't sure who would be the third person. I think by the time we got to week 4, I was kind of thinking David might actually have been the third one to potentially get through, given he's actually quite like skilled in terms of technique wise. The funny thing is that I followed Dan on social media way before the announcement of this season of Bake Off. Like I think I followed Dan, I want to say Dan's like food based account. I really want to say like in the middle of 2018. Yes, I'd actually followed Dan's like cake food based one for a while. And this goes straight into thirst. If dear listener, if you go and find Dan's food based Instagram account, Dan's Bake Lab, go and look on there and tell me what you see, because there's not just cakes, there's a lot of Dan, and a lot of Dan without clothes on.
Yeah, I do have to say our mate Danny's probably got the thirstiest baking Instagram out there that I've ever seen.
I think from a lot of the Bake Off people that I follow, his is like thirst and food on another level. So yeah. And then goodness me, and then having found out that Dan was gonna appear in Bake Off, I'm just like, oh yeah, he's gonna go far. Like,
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh dear. So yeah, those are our thoughts on bakers. And I guess we'll move into bakes and like give our thoughts on each sort of segment.
So
is there anything
else? Forget about the medic.
Oh,
yes.
He's not a baker, but yes, an honorable mention goes out to the medic.
Honorable mention has to go to the medic.
And we have been called out multiple times on the Washing Up podcast, both of us, for referring to the medic. I have no shame when it comes to that, because he's cute though. It's hard to deny that fact. So there. Which episode was this? the third episode?
Yeah, the medic. I think it was. It was.
That was Biscuit Week, right? Yeah.
Poor Laura.
I was like, oh, Laura.
I think the only good to come out of it is she got tended to by a really cute medic. I remember putting out a tweet. I think it was in like Vegan Week or something. I was like, if I rang like 000 and asked for the medic from Bake Off, would they put me through
Unfortunately, I would say no, they wouldn't.
No. Worth a shot. I think I'd get into trouble actually if I did that.
Yeah, you just might. You just might, Brendan. I think an AVO might be in store if you do that. But yes. Okay, let's finally move on to bakes, and I guess we'll do it like a, our favorites from each sort of segment of the show. So, signatures. Were your favorites?
For me, the main ones that sort of stick out in my head are, I think it was Spice Week, I really loved Dan's Italian pide. I think that's what they're called. Because it was there wasn't a lot of savoury bakes. Throughout this season, a lot of sweet stuff, so it was nice to finally have a savoury bake, and it was something I've never heard of, and I remember he did an Italian version one, and it had things like rocket and I think pesto and all that kind of stuff, and those flavours really speak to me as much as his body does.
Are there any other?
I also really
sort of
liked Laura. I really liked her butter cake in Cake Week. Like the fact that she was like chocolate and orange. Like that's one of my favorite flavor combinations, just in general. But the fact that she was brave enough to put things like beer and like mayonnaise, especially, and like avocado and all that kind of stuff, and it actually, especially, I think the mayonnaise is something that I've never really seen used in a cake before. Or she might have put it in the icing, but nonetheless, still quite an odd ingredient, and it actually worked. And props to her for that.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
then I also really liked in the finale, Sunny's, again, this is another chocolate and orange one, her chocolate and orange Dobos tort. I thought, aesthetically, that was really good. Really good. Well done.
Yeah. I loved Sunny's Dobos tort. What else did I like? I think I have a few here. Let me have a look. Which week is this? The week where they did coronets or those cream horns. What week was that?
Patisserie.
Oh, was it patisserie?
The cream horns were patisserie.
I really liked I actually really liked Anston's like combination of coconut, mango, and longan in the creamed horn. It's I know maybe for some people, like, texture wise that might be a little bit weird, but it's actually really good, like, and it's a really good, like, tropical sort of take on what a creamed horn would be. I think in Classics Week, what did I put here? Sunny's samosas. Those for me were like stand out, like really good.
The fact that she convinced Maggie to like a samosa.
Yeah. I think that alone deserves a lot of like credit. So yeah. I think Laura's chocolate orange cake was like a standout, just given how creative she was able to use all those like different ingredients maybe you don't necessarily find in a regular cake. And exactly what you said about the mayonnaise, it's just like when I heard her say that the first time, I was like, what are you on about? But it turned out great, so props to her. Okay, technicals. I have a few that were, to me, not just aesthetically really good, but like really good in terms of technique and difficulty. I had the Arlettes from Biscuit Week down. I also have the hazelnut chocolate orange flan, the flan that you put, like, you assemble upside down, but once it's baked, it flips the other way around. The cannelle from Patisserie Week, the prosciutto and gorgonzola cruffins from the hybrid week, and then the Mont Blancs from the finale. Those for me were not just like really good to look at, but also, in my opinion, very technically challenging. And that's what I love in technicals. How about you, Brandon? What were your favorite techs?
Well, my absolute favorite one, it was in your list, was that chocolate hazelnut and orange flan. Oh my god. Like, I'm a huge chocolate and orange fan. Hazelnut goes really good with chocolate and all that as well, but it's probably been one of the most aesthetically pleasing technicals I've ever seen. It just, especially the example one at the beginning, it was just so beautiful to look at. And as you said, very good skill of technique. I remember Maggie said you've got to actually put, I think it was the flan bit, or you got to be careful one of the elements you had to be very careful not to actually press into the sides, because when it bakes the sponge or whatever the base was supposed to be, I think it was a sponge, you would get flecks of the actual sponge in the actual custard. So that was the technical bit, getting the custard right, and also making sure that the base stayed at the base and that you didn't get flecks of it through the custard.
Yep.
And I also really liked that the Mont Blanc one in the finale. I thought that was a really good test of all their technique and all that, all the different elements they had to do in such a unrealistic period of time.
And given the fact, like technicals are, they're meant to be like deliberately challenging because, like, and I think Canadian does this really well. They deliberately leave out instructions and volumes and measurements. I don't know.
They don't seem to focus on it too much in the Aussie one. They just said they would just say like one or two instructions might be left out, but they don't really focus on what's been left out.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that was shown in the edit as well. Especially in, I think, some of the episodes where they were like, I think it was more the fact that it was time, the time constraint was more the thing in Aussie Bake Off. Like, my impression of it is like, the time constraint is what was more important to really highlight, is to do all of those things in such a constrained amount of time. Compared to, when you look at Canadian, where they're like, make a sponge. Yep. That's literally the instruction.
And yeah, they have the same thing in British Bake Off too. Make the dough. Bake the dough.
Knead until well. I can't remember which. I think it was Canadian. Was it Canadian? That was literally like an instruction from one of the episodes. Knead until well done. I'm like, okay.
I remember there was a technical it was in the finale of season 5 of British Bake Off, and they had to make mini Victoria sandwiches, mini tartar citrons, and mini pavlovas or something like that. And it would basically, and the instructions literally were, make the Victoria sponges, make the tartar citrons, and make, I think it was pavlova, but I could be wrong. It could be something else. But that's basically, they had 3 different lots of mini things to make, and they literally had 3 instructions. So if you don't know how to make a mini version of all those things, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the thing. It's like, technicals are meant to showcase a specific skill or set of skills, I guess, that if you don't know them, you really are doomed to fail. like, try as you may, you probably won't be one of the few people that are in the top. But yeah. Okay. The last ones are showstoppers. So, which showstoppers did you find the most breathtaking this season?
I've got a couple of names.
Ooh,
obviously.
As you do.
I really loved from Biscuit Week his pirate treasure chest. It just was so, like, it literally, like, the way he, like, treated the biscuit, like, that made up, like, the wood of the treasure chest and all the metal surroundings and all that. Like, the way he did it and sort of finished it off, it actually looked like real wood. And if you convince a viewer that it looks like what it actually is, in terms of execution and presentation, you've done really good. I don't know how it tastes. I can't remember what the taste critique was, but it was really, in terms of what I could see in the screen, it really took my eye.
Mm-hmm.
I also loved, and it was the bake that won him Star Baker, I'm pretty sure. I really loved... Oh no, it might have been from a different week actually. He did I think it wasn't a dulce de leche tart.
Dulce apple and date.
Yeah. He did something where I think there was, unless I'm thinking of someone else, but his tart showstopper from that week. It was just absolutely breathtaking. It was just so good. And then the other one that I had was Sunny's For You biscuit cake from Hybrid Week. Really, really like the amount of detail that she put into that. My God, that was amazing. Those were the three that really stood out in my memory. There were probably other ones that stood out at the time, but they've faded from my memory, unfortunately, since we've seen it.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a few, and I think I'll go week by week. I don't think I have one from every week, but yeah. I think the illusion cake showstopper, I put down Angela's pancake stack because my God, they were very realistic. Dan's tree stump and Sunny's concrete succulent thing. Those three were real standouts that week. And I think those were like very, like, I think almost immediately you could tell if you're going to do cakes, these are three of the strongest people that you would have. And then, like you said, I've also got Dan's treasure chest. I've also got Dan's date apple and dulce de leche, fruit tart. I've also got Sunny's For You biscuit cake. What else do I have? I have David's triple chocolate opera cake entremet, and Dan's mojito tropical sunset entremet as well. And then in the finale, I have Sunny's vanilla white chocolate raspberry, and then Dan's white chocolate and apple geometric cakes. So those to me were like aesthetically very beautiful, but also they tasted really good. So yeah, those are mine.
Very good. Very good.
Yes. Okay, so we've basically come to the end, but do you have any, I guess, things you would like to see in future seasons of Aussie Bake Off?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning, I thought in terms of challenges anyway, I sort of felt they sort of stuck to the same sort of stuff that they've always done, the stuff that sort of like has always worked in that. And like one thing I did notice, and I know because Bake Off's been done in so many different countries and it's been done like for so many years, but I did notice there were at least 6 challenges in this season that have already been sort of done in either previous season of Aussie Bake Off, or it might have been done on British Bake Off. And so yeah, just be like, for example, things like the illusion cake one, for example, that you were talking about just before. They did really well. They did, but it has been done previously in British Bake Off, and some of the illusions, like for example the pancake one, that was like it's still really breathtaking in that. But as you sort of there's only so many times you can see the same sort of bake, and it might be good every single time, but for purposes of TV, like if you see the same thing over and over, it just sort of it loses its impact and it just doesn't become exciting anymore, I suppose. So it'd be nice if they could just sort of try and branch out a bit, because yes, I know the show's been on for a really long time and all that, and naturally there's going to be some overlap, but 6 seems quite a lot. And so, and there's a lot of different cultures around the world that they can explore. They can explore Asia, there's the Middle East, South America. One sort of theme I thought of just before, paying homage to the whole Team Ben thing. So Ben's very much, he loves his native Australian ingredients. So I thought it would be very appropriate for the Aussie Bake Off to maybe do a week where they infuse like bakes and that with native Australia that are ingredients that are indigenous to Australia. I don't know if there's actually any bakes that are specific to Australia, but you could certainly, pick other things and have the bakers infuse different sorts of ingredients, like native Australian ingredients, into that.
Yeah, actually, that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and another thing as well. I personally wasn't a huge. I mean, they were aesthetically pleasing. Don't get me wrong, but I was not a huge fan of the geometric cake challenge being in the finale. Like it just with the finale, you really, really want it to be the best of the best, and they were all really good. But for me, that challenge, like for me, that's something I would, in my opinion, I would expect to see as a cake week showstopper. I remember in the very first season of Foxtel's Australian Bake Off, I remember the finale, the showstopper challenge was literally do whatever you want. So they were given however many hours, and you could do literally whatever you wanted and could get done in that hours. And like there was Susie, Jasmine, and Sean, and each and every one of them produced something. They were all completely different from one another, and they were all really breathtaking. And to this day, I can still remember what each person did. So something that sort of really encourages, some sort of challenge that really sort of encourages them to sort of really stretch their imagination and do something really big and really exciting. I still think it's an alright challenge, the geometric cake, but just for me, not for the finale. I would have thought Cake Week showstopper. Something like that in the finale. It doesn't necessarily have to be do whatever you want, but it'd be nice if the brief was a bit more broad, so each person sorts of does something a little bit different. That's what I like in a finale showstopper anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. And those are fair things for them to, I guess, look back on, because comparing and I'm pretty sure we'll talk about this in future episodes. There are very in the other 2 seasons that we're going to talk about, there were some very extravagant bakes as showstoppers. So it's like when you're looking at comparing the other versions of this show to Aussie Bake Off, the finale was a bit I don't know where I would position it in terms of favorite or meh. Yeah. But yeah, I think definitely maybe exploring the native Australian ingredients, that would be actually really good to do. And doing something, I know we sort of touched on it, I think, in Spice Week this season, but I'd like to see some version of what Canadian Bake Off has got, which is International Week. To have maybe don't go and pick one from each each region in the world, like, for the week, but like maybe focus on a particular region of the world if you wanted to, because like if you were, I think was Spice Week was mostly Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because we had Mamul, we had
the Baklava Tower, and then the bidets.
And that was essentially Mediterranean, Middle Eastern. Like, you know, maybe we can do South African. Asia's really good.
I've tried these. It's been years. Cook Sister. They're sort of like a South African, like, sort of donut. It's sort of like dough that's been deep fried and dipped in this really, really sweet sugar syrup. Like, it's very, very sweet, but really, really nice.
And like you said, like South American, or like, you know, Latin American, or like Spanish and Portuguese inspired things, because there are a lot of Spanish and Portuguese inspired desserts that also exist both in Latin America and like places like the Philippines or Macau,
and maybe also even like the eastern countries of Europe, because I think a lot of what we see on Bake Off is very much the sort of like French,
the Western,
sort of stuff. And like, don't get me wrong, it's all really good, but as I said, it goes back to that thing before. If you see, like, for the purposes of TV, like, if you were to put stuff like that in front of me, I would be really excited to eat it. But in terms of watching people make it on TV, if you've seen the same sort of stuff a lot, it just sort of loses its impact. So as you said, if you could explore things like the Philippines, like things that people may not necessarily know about, because that's another one of the things that I've really loved about Bake Off in the past, is I've learnt stuff like different sorts of bakes and different sorts of techniques from it. So I want them to continue exploring different things and maybe inspiring people to do that sort of stuff at home, perhaps.
Yeah, and like it gives like a true challenge to the contestants as well, I think, because you're like in my sort of perspective of it, if you're going to go on a show like Bake Off, I would like to see you challenged outside of your comfort zone. Not just like technique wise, or like, you know, it's more than just a cake. I'm talking like food culturally. Like, I want to see people be challenged and, you know, asked to think creatively in a theme, because like you can make this, like in British Bake Off, especially this season, we got some of that. And in Canadian as well, this year we got some of that. You know, like maybe 1 week in the future season of Aussie Bake Off, they'll make alfajores as a technical.
That would be...
An alfajores technical is something that I'm pretty sure is going to go down very well.
With me anyway.
You know, it's like, that's not just a South American thing, because Philippines also has alfajores. So it's you know, it's a very like Spanish inspired thing.
I'm not actually sure where they originated. I've heard that perhaps they might have originated from South Africa, but I really don't know. But they're definitely something that's very popular in South America. Yeah,
that's what I remember. So yeah, okay. I think that's going to be it. We've covered like quite a bit in terms of Aussie Bake Off this season, and you know, we're gonna foreshadow, like, we have really good content coming up, so there's that you can wait for. I guess, Brandon, if people want to come find you, where can people find you?
Yep, I'm on Twitter and Instagram, so the handle for both of those is Serious SERIOUS_black96.
Sweet. And if you want to come find me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram as Abang Pinoy. If you want to come follow us, the show, that is. We are on Twitter and Instagram as Great Mates Podcast, GRHMAS Podcast, all one word. Come sub to Spoilers for Days, come sub to the main show, Great Mates Podcast, and also to our one-on-one interview podcast called Let's Get Deeper, where you can go listen to Brandon's episode and, listen to us just gush about Schitt's Creek. Quite a lot. And all that other fun stuff. Apart from that, if you like this, feel free to, get in touch with us. We'd love to interact with you. And, if there's something that you want to ask us, feel free to. Maybe we'll answer more questions. We'll see what happens. But apart from that, that's going to be it for us. Come back next time where we're going to talk about British Bake Off, season 10. So, yeah, we'll see you guys then. Bye.
See you then.